I'm going to demonstrate making a funnel tonight. And with that, I would like to call on Mr. Dave Kingsley to show what the normal funnels are. So we just add Dave in here. And so Dave is going to show us, the typical funnel that is made. That is not the type of funnel I am attempting to make tonight. Dave, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. I had one. I turned it Monday night, and then I set it on my workbench, made a basic bowl, flipped it over and turned through the bottom of it, and I set it on the workbench, and from there I discarded it into my garbage, and then from there I emptied out my garbage bag because it was garbage. It was the day for the garbage truck to come through, and tossed it out and then come back in. I'm sitting here for like 20 minutes later, and I'm looking for that bowl that I made as a funnel. And I'm like, doggone it, I threw it away. So what we're going to attempt to make tonight are funnels. And so this is a funnel that I use for filling my flask. Nice soft pad, but thick enough to where if you drop it, it's no big deal. And then so here's a larger style funnel that we'll be making tonight. And so I had a request to make one that would fit a mason jar. Granted, mason jars come in different sizes, but for the most part, it's going to be the same technique. So it's got a small tenon on the bottom side here. That's the inside diameter of the mason jar. And it's got a wall that's kind of concave that allows the funnel to sit inside the mason jar. And if you want to make it bigger, you just use a larger size piece of wood. This is a piece of mesquite. Got to be careful here because I don't want to drop that glass. It's my wife's milk jar. She'll be really upset. But this is a piece of, I know I just said mesquite, but this is a piece of mahogany. It's probably 50 years old. And I ebonized it with iron acetate. Right through there, you can see the shadowance of that grain. That would not take, either side would not take the iron acetate. So that was kind of cool. And it's the same way on the inside. It just kept its orange flame all the way through. So that was pretty cool. And then here's another. This is one I did as a test run today. This was the end grain. Did some backhauling. I was trying to decide whether or not I was going to do that for part of the demonstration tonight. As you all know, I normally do not turn off the side of the bed weight. I slide my headstock all the way down and turn from the end. But what I'm going to do is when I turn the vessel tonight, I will be turning on the opposite side when I'm hollowing this out. So hopefully that'll be a good technique. Other than that, you're just making a cup. You're making a tenon that's going to fit into your vessel. And again, if you want it larger, for whatever your purpose is, you just start with a larger piece of wood, so you have a larger opening to use it as that funnel purpose. But the rest of it, it's going to be the same technique. So once again, so here's one that fits into the mason jars that we have here. So let's get on with it. So we're going to start with a block of wood. So I'm starting with a piece of mahogany, 4x4, essentially. Found my centers. I'm going to put that between centers. Slide the tailstock up. Get this thing pinned. And what we'll do first is We're going to make a sacrificial tenon here on the back side that will allow us to hold it into the chuck so we can do the drilling operation. So we get that synced in. And so typical life center here on the side, standard life center. On this side, I've got a 3/4 inch step center inside my chuck. And so from here, all I'm going to do is make that sacrificial tenon. We want to make sure that none of the corners are going to hit. I'm not going to worry about turning the corners off until later, because I'm going to turn this between centers. There's a guy over in England. He has a motto that says, if it needs a hole when it comes off the lathe, it should have a hole before it goes on the lathe. So we'll do the sacrificial tenon, chuck it up, we'll drill it. I'll be drilling it with a 1/2 inch drill bit, and we'll go from there. I need to grab my schmuck so I don't get wood shavings all over my nice Worldwide Woodturners t-shirt. Got the face shield. And we're going to use typical standard 1/2 inch bowl gouge. Regular M2 steel here we're going to use. How am I sounding coming through? Is my fan coming through? Is my audio being broken up? I swapped
your audio is fine. We do not hear the fan.
Cannot hear the fan, so everything's good. It's not like what happened a month ago with the fan.
Yep, oh, yep. You're sounds great.
Okay, good. All right, so we're just going to come in here. We're just going to make a small tenon. Doesn't take much. You don't need a large tenon. To hold your vessel. And how I mark the perfect tenon size for my jaws is I literally just take a pencil, set it on top of my live center, and boom, right there, I've got the perfect size. And we'll just cut that. And I'm probably going to go about 3/16 of an inch here. And I'm just going to come in and cut the dovetail. Use your skew, you could use your parting tool, but you can definitely use your bowl gouge. And so now we've got that. So I always blow off the dust before I move my headstock or tailstock, because if you move it while there's wood chips there, they are going to get underneath whatever apparatus it is that you're moving, and it's going to cause you to have some out of balance issues. All right, so from here, chuck up that piece of wood. Let's bring the live center up, make sure that we got full pressure on it and seated correctly. Chuck has 2 holes. Manufacturer put them there. Use them. All right, so we slide this back. Put the Jacob's chuck in. We can kind of practice what Sue was talking about. We'll see how well I do on that. I guarantee I will fail. And so once again, so I'm going to use a 1/2 inch brad point bit. I'm going to drill all the way through, also making sure that I drill through the tenon. So I've already got a red line marked on my drill bit, so I know how far I need to go. Bring that up. Safety goggles on for this. And I always try to use a little bit of air while I'm drilling. So I've got instead of your trigger air nozzle, I'm going to use one that you can dial in and keep it directed with a nice steady stream of air going into to evacuate the wood chip and to help for your drill bit. We're going to turn drill about, I'm at 325. And we'll go in about a 1/2 inch, back it out. The air does a good job of evacuating those wood chips, as you can see here. You don't have to worry too much about holding on to your Jacob's chuck when you're going directly in. When you're coming back, when you're bringing the live center back. Most times when you have issues with your live center popping out, it's because your headstock and your tailstock aren't aligned. And so when you're backing out, you've got misalignment issues going on. And the drill bit or the Forstner bit is binding up.
Dane, your sound has just went wonky on us. I don't know if it's a microphone issue or the air or what, but all of a sudden we can't hear you.
What about now? Can you hear me?
Yep, that's much better.
Yeah, you were roboting really bad.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so what I was talking about was with your live center. If you have an issue to where you're fighting your live center to keep it inside your chuck when you're backing it out, you got an alignment issue, because what's happening is your drill bit is binding up in the piece that you're working with, that you're trying to drill. And when you're backing it up, it's binding, and that's what's causing it to try to twist out of your hand or out of the live center. I'll turn the air off. Almost. Now I'm going to slide the tailstock forward so I can get some additional length here. So we only got a little bit more to get through. How's the sound now, Matt?
Sound is good, but it kind of is acting up when you're drilling. I don't think it's acting up. I think it's picking up part of the drilling and
Got it.
not
I
others.
think it's the air, actually.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what
could
I'm
be.
thinking too. Is the air.
Could be.
I got the air off now, so
Yeah, it mixes up with your voice, and the noise canceling is taking out part of your voice as well.
Right.
right. All right, so let's see. Blow through the headstock here and see if anything comes back, and it should tell me that I'm all the way through. And that cleans out all the crap that's inside your chuck while you're drilling.
I didn't see anything come out, so I'm not sure if you're all the way through or not. But
oh yeah, I'm all the way through.
okay, all right.
Yep. All right, so now we'll take the tailstock out. So I got bench dogs on my workbench, and so what I do is I just set my tools like this, that I'm using for something or using often, and I'll set them down inside the bench dog. But now you got a sharp point that you can catch yourself on. And so what you need to do is put some type of cover over the top of them. And old prescription bottles are a perfect item to prevent you from catching your arm on something, making a major boo-boo on yourself. Okay, so now we've got the hole drilled all the way through. And need to blow the rest of the shavings of the duck. There's the back side where it drilled through. Take the chuck off. Set that aside. So what we're going to do now is turn this between centers. And this will make sure that as you're doing the vessel, everything is all perfect with the hole it's been drilled. And so on the headstock size, I'm using a 60-degree dead center. This is also what I would use for turning a pin. And so we'll remount it pin inside out towards the headstock. When you tighten that up, you don't need it super tight because you don't want to, once you start making the funnel end of it, and you're only going to have about 1/8 of an inch, if you got it too tight, then you're going to break that funnel end.
Hey, Dane, could you discuss a little bit about your choice of shape? Because like when I look at my kitchen funnels, they're like conical or triangular with a 45-degree slope. So why have you chosen to do a cup instead?
No particular reason.
Okay.
That's when I make a funnel, that's the basic shape. I'm wanting to use the least amount of wood for the function that it's going to perform.
And it looks like it'll hold more. It looks like it'll hold more stuff too.
Yeah, definitely will. Definitely will. All right, so from here, there's a couple things we got to do. We have to So one, we've got to be able to set, and again, this is specific for the mason jar. This is what I was asked to do. So not only do you need to make the tenon base so it fits in the jar, and I don't feel like swapping out to my larger jaws to hold onto that tenon, but you also need to make a sacrificial tenon to be able to hold it once you turn it around to excavate the inside. So that's what we're going to do now is we're going to, one, shape the end here, and then we're going to set a tenon that will be able to rechuck, and then the final tenon that allows it to go into the vessel that you're making the funnel for. Is that clear on what to do? Take that as a yes.
Yes.
And so once again, we'll go back to the bow gouge, make sure everything's all tightened up. Up a little bit. So once again, when you're between centers like this, you should still be able to move your life center. Here, we'll go ahead and spin it up. Swap out and face shield back on. We'll just, at this time, we'll take these corners off. Get these corners knocked off. And then we'll start shaping the bottom of the funnel and set the tenons. As you can tell from the chippage that's coming off on here, this wood does not want to make nice, pretty shavings. When you're turning like this between centers, the lathe will let you know, the wood will let you know you're taking too big of a cut because it'll stall. The wood piece will stall. Tighten it up just a little bit there. You want to be careful when you're coming off either end that you allow the tool to cut, because otherwise it's going to chip on you. You should get us round here. See how much. That's a flat spot, flat spot. A little bit more to go. And kind of like Capnetti says, how slow can you cut? I got limited real estate here, so I don't want to take it down too much. Just a little bit of a flat. Remember, when you're turning, this hand here is only there to hold the tool onto the tool rest. All that cutting pressure is coming from your right hand, from your hip. It is not, you don't move the tool with this hand here. Otherwise, you're going to create all kinds of ridges and bumps in your turning. So the way I'm turning right now, I'm going super slow, and at the same time, I'm burnishing the wood just to illustrate. Allowing the tool to do its own cuttings. So we're round now. So from here, I gotta blow my mask off because I got a bunch of dust in it. All right, so now we can, now that we're round on the outside surface here. Now we can go into making a little funnel nip, and then setting our sacrificial tenon that we're going to hold the vessel with, and the primary tenon that's going to go down inside the vessel that you want the funnel to go into. Again, it's just a basic cup. Only thing is you actually drill a hole through it, and you got a resting spot for it. So it's not super difficult. Or at least it shouldn't be. But we'll see if I can't make it difficult. So we'll take a little bit of this wood off here. Get ourselves a little nipple at the end, about an inch. So I'm at about 3/4 of an inch here. And I know that I'm going to have a sacrificial tenon that will become part of that nipple. So I'm pretty good with where I'm at right here. And I know on the inside of my chuck, I need to be about 7/8 of an inch for that nipple to pass through, while at the same time being able to attach to the tenon, the sacrificial tenon we're going to cut. And instead of using the eyeballs, let's go ahead and use the calipers and see where we're at. 15/16. We just take a little bit more off of there. So with that, I'm going to use a 3/8 40-degree grind. Yeah, let's do that. And that should be good. Yep, 13/16. So close enough. So now we got to do our tenon. How are we going to mark our tenon? Well, we can't do it with this method because I need to have a tenon at a minimum of 2¼ inches to allow for that nipple to fit through the inside of my chuck. So you're going to have to calculate, or take a look at your chuck, based upon its size, so you can actually get still get a proper tenon for proper holding purposes in your chuck, to determine what that thickness is going to be. But for basic, for the majority of the standard jaws, if you're at 3/4 to 7/8 of an inch, you'll be perfectly fine. And all you got to do is set a 2¼ inch tenon. That makes sense? Sound good?
Yes.
Yep. Tough crowd. And so I got it set at 2¼ and all I'm going to do is visually line up where these two would hit on the back of the vessel here. And I'm only going to be touching the left-hand side. If you touch the right-hand side, you're going to create a little dagger. It's going to come at you. So you can see the lines that are being created. And once those lines match up, you know that's the tenon size you got to turn to. So we're going to turn to this line that we just marked out here from the calipers. Grab the toothbrush and knock out the muck that marred up on the inside of the bevel. I haven't turned much mahogany, but it seems like every time I turn it, it always gathers inside the flute. I don't know if that's a normal thing for mahogany or not. If anybody has any say on that, I'd like to hear it. Yeah, so reposition the tool rest and banjo. So once again, we're just going to turn a real small tenon, 3/16 of an inch to a quarter. We do not want to go past that 1/4 inch line. Then I'm going to take my 1/4 degree 3/8, clean that tenon up. And so next, I need to go inside this mason jar. The tenon that's required for it is 2 15/16 of an inch. So if you're turning something for a specific vessel, make sure you measure the inside of that vessel, and then that's what that final tenon is going to be. So it'll rest in there, and you ain't got to worry about it wobbling when you're filling it up with juice or whatever you may be filling it with. So and so we'll take our calipers and we'll set that to 2 15/16. And we'll do the same thing. Try to line those points up as it's spinning. Left hand side, we'll do the marking. And we got it on the first try that time. And of course, turn everything off before you move your tool rest. Right, Sue?
That's absolutely right.
So now we're going to set that tenon. It's going to go inside the vessel. And so anywhere from 5/16 to 3/8 will be just perfectly fine. And it does not have to be a dovetail tenon. Just do it straight in. And again, you can do it with your skewer, your badon, your beading parting tool. I just wanted to, instead of using one of those tonight, I wanted to show that you can make a proper tenon with your bowl gouge. I'll tell you what, as far as mahogany goes, I'll tell you right now, I do not like turning. But it sure leaves a nice clean surface when you're turning it. So there's nothing wrong with it. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to shape it, make it, basic little cup vessel on the outside. Shouldn't be a big deal on how to do that. It's just like doing a bowl. You want to try and follow your golden mean ratio and try to have a nice curve coming from the top to the bottom. You don't want to turn the whole wall away, but you want to try and connect that whole curve from the top to the bottom here. So that makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we're doing side grain here. And so you'll notice, see how crappy those chips are coming off? So the reason why they're coming off like that, with the tool being presented at that rate, is because you're going against the grain. Now, if you went up high, you would be able to get a good cut. What you want to do is come from the bottom, and now you've got a supported cut. Start doing this curve all the way around. You slow up on your exit cut, let the tool do its cutting. Otherwise, you will split it out. Take one more small cut here on the bottom. So now here's the beauty of turning between centers. At least to me. I guess wood's got built-in static electricity, I tell you. Let's see mine. So if I'm turning right here, so now I'm trying to get up to the top, and trying to get a nice complete tool rotation to the front, but I can't do it because I'm up against the headstock. And so the beauty of turning between centers is you just back off your live center and you flip it around.
That's almost cheating.
It is almost like it's a cheat code.
I like,
Again, remember.
I like turning mahogany, but I was getting my mahogany that was maybe seasoned 30 years. It was old handrails out of buildings, and it was exposed the exterior, and it had lost a lot of the oils. It didn't cling to tools, but it tooled very nicely. But new mahogany I got, the oils clung to the tools, and it didn't. It was hard to dress out. You had to keep the tools. My tools had to stay really clean, which meant cleaning the tools often to keep the stuff from clogging on them.
Yes, it's pretty bad. In fact, this thing's already cracked just from taking it off. A crack appeared, and I'm 1/8 of an inch thick here. So all I'm going to do, just so I can get by, it's no problem here. We're just going to apply a little bit of Parfix 3408 in there. It's going to wick down in there. This wood is, God, it is so dry.
It's Brenda's magic formula.
Yes, sir. You go ahead and hit it here with some Celarant. And you put her back on. So once again, this is where the light touch comes in. So you can see this. It's barely holding. So what do you got to do from here? You got to let the tool cut. It's imperative. So that wing still feels pretty sharp. So let's see what we can do with that. And then so the other trick you can do to identify, if you can't see them, maybe your eyes are failing. I know for me, I'm losing part of my nearsightedness. But if you take some chalkboard chalk, just regular school chalk, and you highlight color, go like that over your vessel, and it'll identify the humps that you have. So I've got one right here in the center. Of course, you can't see it now because it's whited out. And I got one right there. And so we're going to do a eye shearing cut and see if we can't get rid of it. We're going to start from the back and go to the front. A lot of times when you watch YouTube videos, people will be turning their vessel, whether it's side grain or end grain, they'll be following the correct grain direction. But then when it comes time to do a shear scrape, they'll go the opposite. They'll go against the grain, and they'll just keep going, and the next thing you know, they break out the 60 and 80 grit sandpaper to get everything sanded flush.
Hey,
So,
Dane,
yeah,
you couldn't re-chuck that on that lip you made to fit that jar?
I'm sorry, say again.
You could re-chuck that on that lip that you made to fit that jar?
Yes, if you had larger jaws, you could. And so I do, so my, this particular chuck is a Vicmar VM120. So it is large enough to chuck that tenon, but you're going to have the telltale signs of where you chucked it because it dug in, because it's only holding that piece on those 8 points of contact.
Yeah, I'm just thinking
Granted,
about the crack you got in that one there.
Oh, no, this will be fine. We'll get through this. It's no issue. But yeah, I mean, you can overexpand your chuck, but the thing of it is, you're only holding it in eight spots, and depending upon your turning, you could get a catch, and that thing will blow out easily. And so, anytime you chuck a piece, and you got 8 little corner dots in your tenon was entirely too big.
Hey, Dane,
Yes, sir.
didn't you make a temporary chuck? Temporary hold for the chuck?
I made a temporary tenon that's going to fit properly. That's going to fit properly into the chuck. That's what I did earlier.
So why wouldn't you be using it now?
I am going to use it. The question was, could you use the main tenon and chuck on in?
Okay.
So I was just explaining that. That's why I made one doing it incorrectly with an oversized tenon to illustrate that it's only being held by 8 points of contact. And if you was to get a catch, that thing's going to come flying out of your, this is small. It's 9 times out of 10, it ain't going to come out. But if you got a larger vessel with a oversized tenon and it's only being held by 8 points of contact, that piece is going to fly out. And that's part of the reason why it flew out. 1, wrong tool presentation. 2, wrong presentation to the grain of the wood, the cutting parameters. 3, the recess and or the tenon was oversized. And if I missed anything, somebody fill me in or fill us in. Okay, so now we're going to go through here and we're going to turn off this high spot I got. I got 2 high spots. And so I'm starting with my gouge. And I'm going to be cutting with the bottom wing. And I'm going to be cutting about 10 o'clock on the vessel as it's turning here. And we're just going to take super fine cuts. And you'll see everything go away as the white goes away. That's like a baby's butt. And so this is just, I mean, it's just, you touch the shavings and they just go to dust. And so now we're good on the outside. Now we can chuck on the sacrificial chuck, or on the, put the sacrificial chuck in the chuck, and then we can excavate the inside. And the crack held up because I barely had tension going on between the two. One, and three, or two, letting the tool do the cutting going across the top of the vessel. Just pop this out. Doesn't take much to pop it out. Don't wail on it, otherwise, whatever your dead center or your 4-point is going to go flying out of your hand. It's going to hit the ground. You don't want that. Go ahead and take your live center out. That way you don't have that elbow pointing spinning device stab you later on. Let's get the chuck on. Now we will rechuck the sacrificial tenon. And the chuck's got two tightening holes. Make sure you use them. Manufacturer put them there for a reason. They know better than the rest of us. And so now we just excavate the inside, which is atypical of any bowl or cup. So I'll do the majority of it here, turning like standardly. And then we'll try to turn off the backside and see how things go that way. Camera angle will still be okay. So we're going to come in and face this off and make sure everything's nice and tight. So we're doing side grain. So you're going to go from the outside walls to the center. That's your supported cut. If you're doing end grain, you would be going from the center out. Now we'll just turn to the center here a little bit. Once again, this is awkward turning like this. Slide the tailstock down a little bit. We're coming in at the end here of your wall. You want to have your flute closed when you're engaging that cut. You have it open, you're going to get a catch. And after you engage the cut, that's when you open it up to about 1 o'clock, and then you ride your bevel and push on through to the center. And I am taking a heavy cut. About halfway down. Now I'm getting a little bit of bounce on my tool. But that's okay, we're going to fix that here. We'll slide the tool rest in a little bit. Get close to the end. Now we're going to change the rotation. We're going to have it go in the opposite direction, and we're going to turn off this side. Now, would it be better? Because I can do this. I can change the camera setup. I can move my camera down onto my tripod where you can see better of doing this. Is that something that y'all would prefer? Or
Your camera's
me
fine, Dane.
are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Right on. So we're going backwards. But it's the same turning principle. Still got to ride your bevel. You still got to follow the principles of the grain. This way, you can see what you're doing. My life center is still in my way. And I don't like that I don't have my tool on my hip.
So Vice President Kamala Harris is going to be here tonight. So you're going to be watching, right? Yeah.
And so this goes without saying for any vessel that you're doing. You want to turn your outside wall dimension to the final dimension and be done with it. You don't come back and touch it again after you've excavated the mass on the inside, because what's going to happen is once that mass has gone on the inside, you're going to have flex on the outside of the vessel. Might be 1/32 of an inch on one side, but it's going to be spinning oblong. And if you try to come back up here, that's what's going to make you create those ungodly tool marks that you sand forever trying to get out. So you want to get your wall dimensions set while you still have the majority of the mass in the center of the vessel that you're doing. And so I have a nice little tool mark here. And so what I'm going to do is use a box scraper. I'm going to come in and
Those
clean
vibrations are best case scenario, Dane.
Say again?
Those vibrations are best case scenario.
Yeah, true that.
Worse, it blows up on you. Don't ask me how I
Yeah,
know.
exactly. It's going to catch and blow up on you. Thanks for pointing that out, Billy. So we want to make sure we're going in the right direction here. I'm just going to come right straight down, and I'm looking at the wall on the opposite side that I'm cutting. See what I'm doing. Because if you look at where you're cutting, you're not going to be able to see it because of all the shavings that are there. So I'm going to change my direction. And I'm going to pick up that ridge that I left from the box scraper. And just follow that wall down. And so you guys have heard me talk about it in the past. If you got a rheometer on your lathe, instead of hitting that hard stop, make your lathe come to a quick sudden stop, then having to worry about your chuck spinning off because you don't have no grub screws in there. You use that little dial and you turn the speed down, and you allow the internal brake of your system, or just the speed control to slow things down. You don't need that grub screw in there when you're turning in reverse. And if your chuck is coming off when you're spinning in reverse because you're sanding, there's something drastically wrong with your lathe. Okay, so we're about right here. I'm going to slide my tailstock or my banjo right up to the edge here, just barely where it's not touching. See if I can't spin this thing the rest of the way through. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a sharpened gouge. We're almost through. It's funny, I've heard no questions about what speed you're turning at.
What speed you turning at?
Fast. Fast.
Okay, let me know when that matters.
Yeah, y'all know me.
Is that Jimmy Clues fast?
No, not as
No,
fast as
no.
I'm at 2,400.
No. No,
And
Brenda.
Jimmy would be at 3,600.
Of course, you can see the decent looking shavings coming off of there. The inside here. Almost
Yep,
through
good cuts,
here.
Dane. Good cuts.
Yep, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's hard to see what I'm doing. One, I don't have a light on. Does that affect y'all?
It does sometimes. Usually you can do it by feel, but if you've got to follow a contour, I prefer to be able to see it. Cindy
Well,
Drozda's got a really, Cindy
So I
Drozda's got a really great one that's got a magnet that goes on my tool rest.
Yeah, so I don't have a light on right now. So if I do turn the light on, how does that look? Does that affect you?
No,
No, it
it's
looks
fine.
just the same.
It's fine.
Okay, great. Because
I've
now
got
I
one of
know.
those Dros. I've got one of
Now
those
I can
Dros
see.
lights too, and I love it.
Woodturner's Wonders also makes one.
So I'm just following that contour and raising my elbow to move past my live center. And I'm coming in on the cut at about 2 o'clock and then taking it down to the center. Where that hole is that you drilled. Got to be mindful you don't want to go too deep because you also want to have a little bit of mass at the bottom, so you got that weight. You ain't got to worry about it tipping over when you're pouring stuff into it. So I just need to take a little bit more off here. So normally I would, at this time, normally I would grab my box tool rest, put on. So got your standard post. I use collars for the primary tools that I use. It automatically stops at that height that I need it to be at. But this is what I would normally put on to go inside. So I've got a fully supported gouge. I don't like turning anything greater than an inch and a half off of the tool rest. But not everybody has, a box tool rest. So I'm just wanting to show that it can be done. It's just a matter of tool presentation, taking light cuts, and listening to the wood as you're going in. So, all right, so let's go ahead and one or two more cuts down the wall here, and we'll have it. And when I mean cuts down the wall, all I'm doing is lighting my bevel. Then I'm engaging the cut where the wood needs to be excavated at. So did y'all see that? See what happened? So based on my grind, which is somewhere around between 50 and 55 degrees, by the time I got down to the center, my tool is up against the wall. So I can't turn anymore properly. Like you can hold it out and then you're just floating the bevel and cutting on the tip. But that's what happened here. I bottomed out. I couldn't by rights, I couldn't go any further. So I stopped. Has anybody ever experienced that before? Probably not.
Yep.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it's called running out of tool.
That's right. That's all about
Technical term.
that's all about your beveling. It's as an example, the 40-degree grind, man, it's perfect on the outside, but man, you can only get halfway inside a vessel because you run out of real estate. You can't flip that tool around. And so what I'm going to do now is take and use a scraper. And I was asked before on my last demo what grind bevel that I had on my round nose scraper. And so I measured it this morning, and it's 61 degrees. So now we're going to go in here, and we got an eighth of an inch, about an inch and a quarter in the center that we need to remove, and the vessel is done. And so we want to make sure that we're going in the right direction. I need to raise my tool rest. Why do we need to raise the tool rest? Anyone know? Using a scraper?
To be above center.
Because your cut
Yeah, to
needs
give you your
be
negative
above
rate.
the center. Because that's the only way, correct.
Be careful, you start talking common sense. These specialty tools will go out of whack.
Yeah, right. Once again,
Ball end mill, guys. Ball end mill.
There you go.
Finally got mine in. Now I need to find a 3/4 inch bar to stick it in.
So as I'm turning, once
Correctly.
again, I
Go
am
ahead,
just
Billy.
watching the opposite wall here because I can't see on this side, but I can see on that side. So when you're turning, you got to go with the feel of the tool, but you need to be watching your cut as it's happening, whether it's on the inside or the outside. All right. So we're done. It's that end of it. Yeehaw. Blow some shavings off. So if you wanted to sand, go ahead and sand. You know, get a good finish off the tool. And it's a funnel. If you're going to sell them, by all means, go ahead and finish sanding it. All right. So, one other thing that I wanted to show. You guys hear me talk about iron acetate all the time. So let me put this back in here. And so mahogany really reacts to it really, really well. And so for my iron acetate solution, I take a file, I take a piece of mild steel stock, put it in the vise, and I take the file and I file off some shavings. And so this is a 6-ounce bottle. So I fill it up, a little over halfway. That gives me about 4 ounces. And I put in about a half a teaspoon of those metal shavings with cleaning vinegar, not vinegar from the house or apple cider or any of those tricks. Go to the store, the cleaning department, and get the cleaning vinegar. It's got a higher acid rate in it. It's about 35 or 65% stronger. I can't remember what that ratio is, but it's way stronger. And you put those mild steel shavings in there, and that stuff will be ready to use within 3 hours. And all I
Why
do,
don't you use steel wool?
because it doesn't work as good, and you got to clean it. It's not 100% steel. Here you go.
That may be why mine didn't work so well.
Yep. Yeah, you've got to soak it in acid. A couple different, at least 2 acetone baths just to get the oil out of it.
Yeah,
But
I didn't think about that. I didn't clean it.
But yeah, but it's not 100% steel either. Carbon, with a high carbon content. So you can see how that's just turning black. And again, that's all this was. Coated it with wiped it on while it was running, and let it dry. It was, it looked like that in 5 minutes. Okay, so now how do we get rid of that tenon on the bottom? We don't have a chucking point here on the front. Oh no, what do we do? There's a couple different things you can do. You could put it on the front of your chuck. Let's see. Well, yep, it grabs. Or for other items,
Jam chuck.
yeah, you could do a jam chuck. But you can use this thingamajig, whatever in the hell it's called. Help me out, Billy. Screw chuck.
Woodworm screw.
Worm screw. There we go. Put your worm screw.
Woodworm screw.
Yep. Make yourself a piece of solid ply disc. Put yourself some padding on. It's got some silicone ESD. Came from mats that go on an e-wax. So I've got that adhered to the back of a solid piece of 1/4-inch plywood, and screw that puppy on. And so, as long as the vessel is less than 7 inches in diameter, and the top of your vessel is flat, put that on, got your chucking point, and you got a full-time automatic, always prevalent. Jam chuck. We're gonna put our live center back in because we've got the hole here. That's our chucking point. Slide that up. Careful not to catch your finger. Pinch it. And as you're ever so slightly tightening that up, twist the vessel to make sure it's on there straight. And you give it a whirl. Look at that, it's dead perfect. And so now all we got to do is turn that sacrificial tenon down into the
Dane?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you put your cone center on, what I do is I turn a piece of dowel and I leave a shoulder on it and I stick the dowel up into the cone, and then I take my live center and come into the back of the piece of wood that's left over that's bigger. If you know what I'm saying.
That's a good technique also, but it also depends upon how well that dowel is not going to coincide with the axial dimension that was turned initially on the vessel itself.
Yeah, that's why I turn my dowel so it's a nice fit and it goes up in there.
Right.
Yeah.
So now thanks, Dan. So now what we're going to do is turn that tenon off here. See if we can keep that nipple from breaking. I'm about 2,500. We're just going to take light cuts. Got the tool handle down by the hip. Seems to want to cut better going towards the headstock. Imagine that. I'm just going to blend that right in. Hopefully not blow through the bottom of the funnel. Wouldn't that be crazy? Making a funnel and you make a funnel.
If it holds together, it all works.
Like a double purpose project.
Right? Man, that wood just jams up inside your flutes.
Yeah.
But hey, that's what toothbrushes are for.
Look at it this way, Dan. You could have an addition for the recovery.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So take a magnet, glue on the back of a toothbrush, and you've always got a little mini brush available for you. Do the same thing with your pencil. Put a little magnet on it, and you always got it.
Tom Hatch is going to want rights on that. Tim
You
Hatch.
can have them.
Okay.
All right. I just got a little bit here to turn off. I'm going to grab my 40. Tempting fate. Because I feel thin right there. I can hear it singing. See? Tempting fate. All right, let's see where we're at. Alrighty. What do y'all think? Think it'll fit the first time, or think we have to put it back on here to turn that tenon down? There we go.
Dane, what
Now you got to.
that you put on your plywood?
So it's a stuff. It's a silicone mat. So this is something that was manufactured for the Defense Department, but it was something that failed quality and stuff like that. I took home.
Got it.
But yeah, it's just a solid silicone mat. I got a 19 and 15/16 inch disc as well, that I use for larger vessels. The same thing, but this way, that silicone, it grabs onto it,
Yeah.
your vessel, and so again, this is just another way to true up a bottom or remove a tenon, or
It's a great idea.
do whatever.
Sue, I got a yoga mat from Walmart and cut mine up. So when you go look for a yoga mat, you just look
Yeah.
for something that's got a really good, consistent, flat surface, and that'll work.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I was thinking of using I got a roll of the mat you put in toolboxes. I was thinking of cutting that up.
That will work too. Router pads,
Yeah.
as long as it's a thin router pad. But yeah, anything like drawer liners, silicone drawer liners. You could, if you had access to sheets of cork, glue the cork onto a solid base. But again, it's got to be a solid base. It's not going to move. Not 5-ply construction grade plywood. Birch plywood. MDF even works well.
Okay.
But not the 3-ply typical plywood. So, any questions?
No, I kind of liked it.
Just
Pretty
Oh,
good.
cool. Very good.
Hey,
So,
great
Good
video,
job.
Dan.
Good job, Dane.
Do you ever
thank you, Billy.
them?
What?
Do you ever put a finish on them or not?
On the outside, every now and then I will, but the inside I'll just leave as is. Turn it with solid hardwood, and you're good. It's gonna gather. For us, we use funnels for outside of my booze funnels. We need it for our orange juice and our grapefruit juice that we crush every year, from our fruit trees. So
Okay.
they come in handy for that. I've got smaller ones that go into 1/2-gallon Tropicana glass jars with Strauss milk, 1/2-gallon jars, which is a 32 millimeter tenon that goes down inside, the glass jars for it. But yep, that's how you make a funnel that's actually purposeful.
Great. Nice memo, Dane. Nice memo.
Yep, very
Thank
great
you all.
job.
Great demo. Great demo.
Why didn't you go through the bottom of it?
Huh?
I'm goofing with you.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. I hear you. Right? I was, like I said, I was pimping fate here, but yeah, not too bad.
If you make the hole bigger, the stuff you're trying to put into the mason jar with it goes in faster.
See?
Well, that's true, but we also put screens in there to further catch the pulp from the citrus.
Ah.
So
Well,
fill it up and it allows it time to go through. It's just a process. I got a big press, cast iron. You squeeze half at a time. So it's a weekend project. When Tina and me are doing the fruit juice. So, but it's definitely worth it. So, all right, cool. No questions.
I don't
Swing
see
back.
none.
Hey, Dave, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
When you're bringing in cutting the cup. Now I've predominantly used carbides, but I've recently been switching over to more traditionals. Your presentation going in, where you say you're hitting on the right as you were going in. So when you're
Yes.
cutting in, you're actually, are you turning as you're going in,
So
or are you using the same degree the whole way through?
no, I'm using the same degree the whole way in.
Okay.
And so part of the problem reason why I caught at the bottom.
We can't see you.
Yeah, I
let's,
know.
let's switch.
Hold on, I'm
Dane,
gonna fix.
Yep.
I got you.
Okay, thank you. So part of the problem is the shape, so it's got a curve to it. So when I was trying to get into the bottom, that's when I was hitting the wall. And that would make no difference if you were turning on, the traditional side going in, as opposed to turning on the opposite wall like I was showing how to do it. You would still hit that wall. But you're using carbide. And so are you using the round
Yes.
cutter? So what I would recommend, do you have reverse on your lathe?
Yes.
So I think part of the problem is you're not able to see what the cutter is doing, and that's what's hanging you up on it. So try doing it on the opposite side. You're coming in with your carbide, round carbide. And you're going to be at a slight angle to it.
Yep.
Something like that.
Right.
So you're going to be
Keep trying, Al,
presenting
you'll
it.
get there.
You'll be presenting it somewhere around 2 o'clock, 1:30 as you're coming down that wall to your center. And when using these carbides, I'm not a carbide professional, but I do hollow with them for actual hollow forms. You need to be above center, and you need to be cutting on the bias. Otherwise, you're just going in, you're stabbing, and you're scraping.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Well,
That's pretty cool.
if that's all we have here regarding the demo, then let's.
Hey, Dan,
Let's see. We got about. Yeah, go ahead.
what's going to prevent that chuck from coming off when you're turning in reverse if you get a catch or try hogging too much wood?
You know my answer to that, right? Proper tool presentation.
Yeah,
Listening, proper feed rate.
What about somebody that just accidentally does it? What's going to prevent that from coming off?
I don't think a new turner is going to be taught how to turn on the opposite side until they know how to turn on the correct side. Right?
That's true. I agree with that. But
and it's going to take a lot. I mean, you're really going to have to dig in there to unseat that chuck.
That's true.
I'm sure it happens, and in fact, I know it happens because we hear about it here within the group. About their chucks coming off when they're sanding, and so I'll go back to what I was saying. There's something wrong with your chuck setup if your chuck is coming off and you're in reverse.
Well,
Go ahead, Tim.
set screw that needs to be set.
All right. So
I don't use a grub. So what I demonstrated tonight was showing that the grub screw is not used. And you can turn in reverse, and your chuck is not going to come off.
What I was going to say was if you hit the stop button when that lathe is turning at that speed, it is going to come off. That's why you have to use a dial like Dane was showing you in the demo.
Correct.
Turn your speed down, get down to 0, and then
it'll stop on its own. That chuck will sit there. But
Not only that, thank you, Tim. Not only that, if you use your speed control to turn your lathe on and off, per se, that's going to save those little jumpers from breaking from your constantly going on, off, on, off. Turn it on in the morning. As long as you're outside and you're working with the lathe, leave it on. You got the dial turned down. When you leave, that's when you turn it off. And it's going to save those cheap jumpers in there that break all the time on these paddle switches. So like right now, I'll go ahead and turn it off.
I always thought that red button was just for an emergency. I've always used the speed dial to turn it on and off. And just the red dial is just an emergency.
Amen, Gary. That's how it should be treated. Yep.
Dan, if I could
Yes,
word
ma'am.
for new turners or novices, if
Yes.
you've never turned in reverse and you have a chuck that says that it's reversible, it has a set screw. And they should use the set screw their first time or so. I wouldn't.
As a novice turner that is not used, that has not master's the wrong word, that has not figured out the sound of wood that it makes when it's cutting, hasn't figured out the slicing, good cutting protocol of turning in the traditional direction, they should never be turning in the opposite direction, because it is a totally different presentation.
Well,
it's like taking the training wheels off a bike.
Right.
You
Well,
don't take them off until you know what you're doing.
Right.